Hey, good people. Welcome back. You're watching Dying Out Loud on the Line. It's Tuesday, July 18th. I always get this wrong. I forget what day of the week it is. I forget what month we're in. We're in the year 2023, I'm pretty sure. And most of the places I'm aware of are in the dog days of summer. It may not be hot where you are, Paul, but everywhere it seems in the U.S., they're breaking heat records. What's the weather like in northeastern Canada? No, southeastern Canada, right?
Yeah, southeastern Canada. Yeah, it is. Well, it's 33 degrees, which is what 106 ish, I think.
That's
so
hot.
it's definitely warm. We Nova Scotia, where I recently moved. Well, recently in the last 2 years, we get all the types of weather. So
Yeah.
actually, not really cold. We don't get prairie cold,
but you get the heat. I didn't realize that.
We do get the heat.
Yeah.
We're actually south of Maine, if you can believe that.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's
Well,
this
Maine
weird
seems
geographic
cold too.
blip. So,
But
yeah,
man, I know.
we're more south than people think.
Yeah, I know some people who are really suffering with some massive heat and breaking heat records every day, and it's the earth is definitely getting warmer. Just look around. But thanks for tuning in, everyone. As you can see, our guest is Paulogia, and we're excited to have Paul on. You told me backstage you've been a little busy this week. What you been doing?
Well, this is my fourth stream in the last 24 hours, but at least fourth recording. So I had a Paulogia live show last night, and I recorded with Dr. Bart Ehrman this morning, and then I had a debate with a Catholic apologist this afternoon, and now I'm here. So I'm both excited and tired, and I'm hoping we get some great calls to keep me going,
keep you awake. No, I appreciate you coming on. It's an honor to have you. We've known each other a couple of years now. We got to know each other online, then we got to meet in person a little over a year ago at a conference in Indiana, and you and Shannon were both there speaking. I was speaking. And so it's always, I've said this before, but it's always a thrill for me when I meet folks that I've known online. I hadn't been knowing you as long as I had Shannon. We'd been friends online for 4 years or so, and getting to meet her was just really, I was really looking forward to that. And so that's.
Well, if you can only know one of us, you pick. If you only can know one of us, you pick the right one. That Shannon is the better half. So.
Well, she said that about you, Paul. So. You guys are both great. I'm big fans of both of you. Not only with what you do, the work you do, but just the humans you are. Just quality individuals. So, all you viewers out there, whenever you get a chance to meet Shannon or Paul in person, take the opportunity. If they're going to be speaking or at a conference near you, get there, because it'll be worth your time and trouble. I promise you. That was fun last year. Hope to see you again one of these days somewhere.
Yeah, hope we do more.
Yep.
And that you'll be there. Yeah.
Well, I'm actually going to be at a conference in your country in a couple of weeks. End of August, the BajaCon conference. Matt's going to be speaking there as well, and it's going to be.
Is that the one near Niagara Falls?
No, it's in Sarnia, which is about 2 hours west of Toronto, right across the border from Detroit, essentially.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's where that is.
Well, I'll still think about a road trip then, maybe. That'd be fun.
You guys ought to come over. They got a great lineup. Matt's going to be there, like I said. Aron Ra is going to be there. Seth, Hemet Mehta, Dan Barker, Annie Laurie Gaylor, Greta Vosper. I'm going to leave somebody out. My friend Drew Bakius.
Wow, that's a killer lineup.
It's killer, yeah. It's going to be fun. Well, let's not beat around the bush here anymore. Let's take a call or two. You ready?
I'm ready.
By the way, let me say a couple things before we do that. I want to encourage you to call in. We've got lines open. The call-in number is 720-619-2288. Oh, it's right on the screen too. And the web link in the description if you're online on the interwebs. But please call in. and let me say this about our calls. I saw a comment a couple weeks ago. Someone said they get bored with shows like this. They just want to hear atheists beat up on theists. I understand the entertainment of that, the entertainment value of that for some of you, but that's not what we do here. And I don't take much pleasure in that. I will obviously enjoy a call from a theist. I would welcome theists to call, Christians to call. In fact, we encourage our call screeners to give them preferential treatment and let them through first, because I want to hear your arguments for why you believe in your God, and especially around the issues of the afterlife and death and dying and the things that we talk about on the show called Dying Out Loud. So with that in mind, I mean, the subject matter on this show is more about the quality of living, the things that you value in life, the things that trouble you in life, the hardships you go through, losing loved ones, facing death as a non-believer, changing your attitude about death and dying if you were once a believer and now an unbeliever. And those are the conversations we tend to have here. So if you're looking for the entertainment value of atheists making Christians look stupid, this may not be your show. And so just keep that in mind. That's not what we're trying to do here. And I don't want to disappoint anybody tuning into this show hoping that Paul and I are going to blast some theists with our superior wisdom and knowledge. It might happen if they call, but we're not trying to do that. We're trying to have intelligent conversations about real issues that matter to us. And some of those conversations do have to do with what people believe and why. And if people have beliefs without evidence and bad ideas, we want to expose those, but not in a way that makes someone look bad or embarrasses someone. I don't enjoy that. And if you find entertainment value in that, I think you need to maybe question some things about what you find valuable if you're watching this and that pertains to you. So just a little disclaimer there. Any thoughts on that, Paul, what I just said?
I was just more thinking, you know what network you're on, right, Dave?
I know.
Yeah. You can just basically tune in another. You can just tune in another night if that's what you're looking for. I guess that would be. Although we try to have elevated discourse on this channel for sure. So no, I'm absolutely with you, and if we can be a help in helping you formulate your thoughts, because that is one of the struggles. I think when you leave religion, even your vocabulary is so entwined in what you used to believe that it's hard to even express sometimes a new way to grieve or a new way to think or a new way to be free of hell. And that is one of the services that we greatly like to be able to help people do, is even just find language for the new feelings and the new thoughts that come forth. And so anyway, call in if that's you still looking for soft place to land.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk to Tino, she, her in Norway. Hello,
Yes,
Tino.
hello.
You're on the line with Dave and Paul. What's on your mind?
Yes, you see, I'm calling from Norway, so I have heard it some delay, some seconds. No, I cannot all the words, but my cohabitant, he is listening to your programs, and some weeks ago, I said to him, maybe I call in and tell them about some incidents that happened in my house some years ago. That was very, what can I say, turned something around. It was very extreme. Yeah, what can I say? Okay.
Yeah, the description says dealing with the subject of life after death. You wanted to tell about 3 incidents that happened in my house some years ago.
Yes.
Tell us about those, Tino.
Yes, it was, I live in the southern Norway. It's very many old houses here. I have been fixing some houses. I've been painting, carpeting, do everything. And first, I can tell about this, what can I say? Yeah, I was carpeting. What do you call this carpeting? You take this on the wall. Isn't it called
Wallpaper?
carpeting? Yes,
Wallpaper?
wallpaper. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Carpeting
Yeah,
on the
I
wall.
was.
I love it.
Yeah, and I was standing there on this step ladder, and then I heard some step down on the floor. Very, very like I didn't think it was down on the floor, but it was very close to me. But I didn't think it was down on the floor, of course, because I looked out. It was a summer, I had window open. This was the old part of the house. I looked out of the window and expected somebody to come, and nobody coming. And I went in the room again, and I continued paper on the wall. The step continued, and I didn't understand anything. And the step was like halting. What do you call it when you have this prosthesis?
A prosthetic, a
You know
fake
what?
leg or something?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like you're halting, you're not going like you're going a little bit special kind of walking then. Yeah. Okay. And then it maybe was 1.5 minutes or quite a long time. But I just expected somebody to come to the door, but the step was about the same level of sound all the time, Okay, and I'm standing there, and what is this? Huh? And I went out and I saw the neighbor. It was just one close neighbor. It was an old woman, and she was out. And I said to her, I hear some step, nobody coming, I not understand anything. And she looked at me and, okay, I said, have you seen anybody? It's the end of the road, this house. It's just a pattern to the house. It's not the road, it's a pattern. Okay, and she said, no, I'm not seeing anybody. And I said to her, it's like the step is not, it's like, do you call it halting in? Oh, okay. I didn't say three-leg. I didn't say prosthetic. I just say it was like somebody not going natural. They're going like, oof. Yeah, Okay, and then she laughing of me, and she said it was, she just laughing. Well, I went in again, and I forgot about everything. Okay. And some years later, maybe 2 years later, I had 2 women renting in my house for once on a week, because I'm renting out on a week, because it's a holiday town, this. Okay, and then I just forget my brain work, because I'm not a believer in such things, not at all. And then I didn't think about it 1 minute after this. And 2 women renting in my house. I think it can have been when I was finished carpeting everything. It can have been 2 years after this woman renting one summer week. And when I was there the last day of their summer week, I think it's a little bit to tell about it. It's a little bit. It's about like I'm there again. Okay, I'm standing talking to her and asking them about the holiday, how it was and everything. And then she said to me, do you know what? We heard some step in this small living room in the night. We were sleeping in each 2 small bedroom. This is the old part of the house. 2 small bedroom have the door out to this small living room. It's a very small house from before, 30 square meter or something. And she said to me, we heard step in this small living room, like, like you're not going exactly good, like you have 3-leg then, prosthesis or something like this. And I just laughing at her. And I say, it have to have been somebody that just went around the house, even if nobody goes there because it's private property and everything. And then she said, no, we are sure that we heard it, and we talked a lot about it, and we're absolutely sure. Oh, I was just irritated because I was renting out and I didn't want to listen to this. Okay, and they went, and I just forgot about this also. out of my brain. But what happened, I don't know exactly if it was after or before this, but it was about in the same period. This is the what I call it the main incident. It's like I don't know what I can, how I can describe it, but I was in the first floor in the new part of the house, because we have been building 2 floors connected to the old house. Down there, it's nobody. What can I say? It's the end of the house, end of the. It's nobody is going around in this place. And I was standing there, and I should fix some painting. I should do what to say. Look at this. What do you call it? When you try to find paint, you look at this small. To see if the right color, you have the right color.
Like swatches?
And I should mix them.
An easel?
Swatch. I don't know. It's just like a paper. You have some colors on the paper, and you try to find the right. Something like this. Okay, and I was standing in the part of the. It's not a cellar. It's not under the ground. Half of it is underground, and half it's not. It's a door out. And step up to the first floor outside, and it's window on the other side. And I was just standing there, and in my own thoughts, when I work, I'm always in silent. I like to concentrate, thinking. And I was standing there, thinking what color I should have. And it 2-3 meters from me, I heard a voice, and it was. From a man, quite old man, not very old. When I think about it later, because I try to reconstruct what you call later, and it was about 10-15 seconds. It was close to me, 2-3 meters in the same room, but I didn't think about that, of course. But it was so close, but because I not believe in such a thing, I didn't think. So the door is on the right, left side, and the window is on the right. So I was bending down then over this. I thought maybe I should paint, and I went raised myself up like this, and I looked around, and I said in my house, I said hello, 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 and I didn't understand. And of course I went to the door, and I looked to the right, that it's up the step. Outside, and I said hello, and it was so quiet. I remember this quietness. I can't explain it. It was just so quiet, because it's a quiet place. You not hear anything. It was just an old woman that was living beside me. It was so quiet. Okay, I went in the room again, shut the door, because it's a little bit cold, but it's in the day, not in the night. It was light outside. I went in the room again. And still not understand, of course. And I looked out the window then on the other side, and I called again. Hello, hello, is somebody there? Not an answer. And the same happened. This episode, or what can I call it? When I went out from the house, because I also had another house that I was fixing, I just forgot about it. It was out of my mind. I owned this house from 2004 to 2016. This had to have been about 2006, 7, 8 in this period. And it was just out of my mind, because I never think about such things, what they call paranormal, I don't know. This man I live together with, we find the word is, we're not married, but we're together, cohabitant. In 2014, suddenly it came back in my consciousness, these episodes. I was very surprised. What? I met my cohabitant, the man I live together with. I met him in 2008. We moved together 2009, like this. And, it was just, I don't know exactly why it came back in my consciousness in 2014, and it was a shock. I'm writing it down now in a book because really I talked about it every day with him and we're living together with. I said, it cannot be possible. It cannot be possible. And he said, no, it cannot be. But I said, I heard it with my ears. I never hear anything in my, because really I'm a person, what can I say? I went out of the church maybe 25 years ago because I not believe in anything. And then I went in this, what you call it, human ethic society or something.
Humanist, yeah.
What can I say?
You're rational and logical. You're not a superstitious person, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, and that's maybe why I didn't think 1 second when it was just not in my thoughts at all. And
right. When you
it
heard
was
these,
very strange.
when you heard these footsteps and when you heard this voice, what did the man say? Did he say words? You said you heard a man speak. What did he say?
Yeah. Now you can see what you know, I play a word game on the net here in Norway. And we have this what you call it, this forum. It's not about the word, it can be about everything, this forum. And I was anonym. I was not, it's not my real name then. And we were just have this different kind of topics in this forum. And then I just needed to tell to somebody, anonym, you know, not my name. And then I tried to write down I tried to recall exactly what this voice was. I could, together with the man I live together, I tried to recall it, you know, up again, many, many times, 10 to 50 seconds. But what I write down there, I couldn't understand one single word, but it was very, very tydelig. Oh, what you say in English. Kjetil, what you say tydelig in English? I tried to ask him because it's better in English. Yeah.
So
tydelig, no. Precise, no. It's very like you talk now, like I talk now. It was very not loud and not very. It was just normal talk, not to me, not at all. It was just a man's voice, but not one word I can recall.
So let me just interrupt you for a second. So I just want to. You had two experiences yourself in this house. One where you heard footsteps, the other where you heard a man's voice, and then the third incident was a guest in the house heard the footsteps. Is that a summary of what you were telling me?
Yes.
2 guests, okay.
2 guests, yes.
And this was over a period of several years, and you don't know what to make of it. Well, first of all, Paul, what's your reaction? Do you believe in ghosts, Paul?
I do not. I have yet to see sufficient evidence for anything else that you use the word paranormal. You know, I've yet to see any evidence of anything supernatural. I know I did feel a lot of things and hear a lot of things when I was a religious person that I attributed to being supernatural things that I later, some of which I was later able to identify what the things were. Others I just realized that, you know, I probably was attributing either things that my brain was producing, because auditory hallucination is very much a thing. Our brains can concoct sounds that aren't even there, sometimes even to fill in silence, because our brains like to fill in visual silence and audio silence. But then there's also the phenomenon of pareidolia, which is probably not a word that Tino's familiar with, but pareidolia is this phenomenon we have that we as pattern seekers, humans, like to find the patterns in everything. And so sometimes we can look at a cloud and we think it looks like a cat or a face or whatever. And we can see a face in toast or all these kind of things where things that aren't an actual pattern get perceived by SB patterns. And the same thing happens when we hear things. We can, our brain can put together things as patterns that aren't necessarily. So those are things that I'm considering, but I'm curious as to what you attribute them to.
Can I tell something? It's a long story, this, but before I sold this house in 2016, I didn't think I would sell this house, but I felt no. But okay, it's like I went to the neighbor. It in 2014-15. Now it have to be a little bit out in 15. I went to the neighbor because before she was living there, she was not so very old, about 80 years old. Her what do you call it? Not her parents, but the parents to her husband was living there before, and she was living down in the street. It's quite not so big area, you know. And she knew this man, and I thought I'm crazy sitting in this living room with her, and I'm telling that I heard something in this house, and I wonder what she thinks. But I didn't get my spouse, yes, cohabitant. He heard everything she said, but I was a little bit in shock because it was And I said, I heard his step that I said, and I heard his voice, and she could tell me his name, and he was living there. He died in 1975. He was born in 1898. And she knew him, and her parents-in-law, they knew him. But I didn't. I bought this house in 2004. I didn't know anything about. When he died, I was just 9 years old. I didn't know anything.
Well,
so it was nobody that I...
Let me interrupt you again. I don't want to go too long on this because I really just want to get what what Paul asked you. These things are unexplained, and you've identified yourself as a rational thinking person, not superstitious. So I guess to summarize these experiences, what have you come away with thinking that they are, or what do you feel about them, and how did they make you feel in terms of afraid or anxious or anything? What's been your summation of these experiences, if you could briefly summarize it?
It happened, if the closest I can come to say something rational is it was another dimension. I would never think like this in my life. But after I experienced this, it's another, what you call it, dimension. Like, what can I say? It's not possible to find a word.
You're thinking that perhaps there are people existing in a fourth dimension or fifth dimension that we can't see or understand, and that's possibly that there are these individuals out there from the past that still exist there. Is that, I guess what we would commonly refer to as ghosts.
But then we all can be ghosts then, but we are going to die. I don't use such word because he was living in this earth like me and you, and when he went, I don't know what I can think, but I didn't see him, and I didn't feel anything bad or anything like this. Just a voice with my ear, and just a step with my ear, and also these two women said to me, we were not afraid. Not afraid. It was in the night for them, but for me it wasn't. I don't know, but I just think about the soul. I never thought about the soul before, but I think about after this. I think maybe we have got a soul. That's what I think.
What do you think happens
or something?
What do you think happens after we die?
I don't think about absolutely nothing. But after this, I have it with me every day. I write down. I talk to another neighbor, and what can I say? It's like, we don't know anything. So after this incident happened,
Well,
Still, I am a little bit in shock.
well,
My brain will never accept.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Let's wrap this call up, but I do want to get your final thoughts on this, Paul, before we go.
I guess maybe
What
I guess I would encourage you to think about what things it could have been that don't involve souls or don't involve I'm unclear how you came to decide that this voice had to be the same voice of the person who died, especially since you couldn't identify what they were saying and you didn't meet them, like how you would identify that it had to be the same voice. There's just a lot of questions for me that don't land in therefore there's a soul. And I would just encourage you to think about what some of those are. And also, you mentioned yourself, there's so much we don't know. So forming a conclusion out of a big pool of we don't know doesn't seem like a good way of knowing something. It comes like a good way to speculate, and maybe these can be interesting conversations to make these speculations. But if you want to, you didn't provide for me anything conclusive that points to a single conclusion. It just seemed like you had an experience it seems like something you can't explain, and when we can't explain something, we like to fill in the gaps because we feel like we don't like having gaps in our knowledge. We like to fill something in, and sometimes we just fill in almost anything so that we don't have to say I don't know. So I would encourage you to also just be comfortable saying, man, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, and don't draw a conclusion that may not be there. But Tino, let us move on. I appreciate you calling, but we've got a lot of calls lining up, and I don't want to delay this too much longer. But thank you for calling in, and like Paul said, just consider just making sure where you land has good evidence to support it. Okay.
Yeah, we never have evidence for such a thing. Okay, bye.
Thank you for calling. Bye. Okay. I'm sorry. Well, those were interesting stories, but I don't know if we're any further along now than we were when we started. But
perhaps
I think
not.
That's where I land too, Paul. And just follow the evidence. And if there's not sufficient evidence to draw a conclusion of something that's supernatural or soulish, then we just have to say, I don't know, and be comfortable with that. And I'm like you. I've yet to see any evidence that points to there being a soul or an afterlife or any spirits that hang around afterwards or anything like that. It just doesn't make sense on any level for me. And the big question to me is why?
I was going to say, we do have a lot of evidence for our brains playing tricks on us.
Exactly.
That we have a lot of evidence for. So that seems like the more likely outcome, or more likely cause. But
we do have lines open. I want to encourage everyone to support this channel. You can do that several ways. Patreon.com/calltheline. And we're trying to beef up the Patreon support so that we can put together a line con, not call con, line con next year conference with all of the folks from the line being there and you as well. Those of you who can get there. So we're trying to do that. You can also support us with the super chats, as you know. And at the end of the show, we read out every super chat that is $5 or more. So if you've got a comment or a question that you want read out in the super chats, get those in along through the show. Anything over $5 or more, we'll read. And coming up on the line, we've got tomorrow night on the Hang Up, we've got Matt Dillahunty and Jim Barrows. And then Thursday night on the Transatlantic Call-In Show, our own Arden Hart and Kara Griffin. And then the Sunday show, Jimmy Snow and Matt. And then Skeptalk with John Gleason and a yet-to-be-determined co-host. And then next week, right here on Tuesday, again on Dying Out Loud, myself and Andrew Seidel. So you don't want to miss that. So that's what we got coming up.
Nice.
And it's I tell you, this channel is just the bomb. I love being here. I love the shows. I love the guests. I love the topics and the calls. And speaking of that, I think we should grab another one. What do you think?
Let's go for it.
We got RFB, he, him in Thailand. You're on with Dave and Paul on the line.
Okay, greetings. So
Hello. What's on your mind?
The topic I sent in is so I interpret the topic of the call as life after faith test. That is what happened to you after you deconverted, and I go with it. I submit the topic of I often feel nihilistic and I don't know how to deal with it, which sums up quite well how I feel. I mean, I kind of feel like that even before I get out of religion, but now that I have stopped believing in religion, it kind of feels more. So what I believe is kind of like everything just kind of up to subjective opinion. That's what I mean by I feel pretty nihilistic. That I kind of get that.
Are you out in the wind somewhere? Are you somewhere where there's wind? It seems to be a lot of background noise. If you could get somewhere maybe where it's quiet and we can hear you better.
Oh, sorry, it's just my fan. Actually, I make it face down. It should be clear. It's clear now.
Yes, much better.
Perfect.
Thank
That's
you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So you were a believer. When summarize your belief journey, your faith journey for us briefly, if you would.
I actually have never been a theist. Actually, I grew up in Thailand, which mostly is a Buddhist country, so I don't believe in God. But I have practiced Buddhist tradition with my family for a while until around my high school years that I feel like that my the Buddhist traditions I hold kind of doesn't answer my life questions anymore now that I learn different perspective to life and feel like most of world building in Buddhism is that's either doesn't make sense or is unfalsifiable or can't be known. So I kind of walk out of it and try other ways, mostly with scientific method. I didn't know the name, but I kind of stick to more natural and provable way. But then I kind of got to know much later, actually pretty recently, that I understand why some questions just seems to not have an easy answer. That's when I know that the fact I don't know, I'm not sure what it's called. Fact value distinction. I think the is odd problem. That's why I feel. That's why I feel like
the is odds problem. Okay, yeah. What does nihilism look like to you? When you say you're feeling nihilistic, what does that mean to you? How does that express itself for you?
So it kind of jumps out that. So I learned this word like quite some time now. And I stick to the most basic definition of it. That is a rejection of value in something that usually held. What value that I reject, I kind of reject the intrinsic value of life and also of morality, which that's kind of view that I hold. Although I still believe that there is still some subjective values. That's why I still like have some belief, even though I feel like there is no objectivity to it. And I hold that position like precisely because different beliefs, including different religions we have, and I feel like it's hard, if not impossible, to say like what is the objective truth or objective morality looks like. Why I can support my position on that? I just feel like it doesn't fit right with me sometimes, that I have to live along what I practically made up or made up with other people.
You feel like you've always kind of had this. You've always kind of had this nihilistic feeling, but it's magnified now that you've moved away from believing any kind of like Buddhism or any kind of other.
I actually feel it more when I know about when I get to this atheist circle. Actually, when I learn more about philosophy and understand how this idea came to be about how we view things and have value judgments of things. It kind of have been this way for a while, but kind of get more now that I get into about atheism and listen to many opposing worldviews.
Well, when you say it feels like nothing matters, that's what the description says in the call. And how to deal with your nihilistic feeling, it sounds like you're not happy with the way it feels or what you're experiencing, and is it fair to say you would like to find a place to land that offers more meaning in life? Is that something that you feel like you're looking for?
That's one way to put it. I think so. I mean, it's more like asking a question from the host, actually, just from the topic I seen in the title of the stream.
The title of the stream was what was it actually? Life after death, life after faith.
After faith, death.
Yeah.
After faith, death. So not actually after death, but after the conversion,
faith, right? Yeah, after, and I've heard this is not uncommon. I've heard that before, and Paul, you may have too, that people who have a belief in a God or there's an adherence to a faith of some kind, they feel like it gives them purpose and meaning, and when that's gone, they can flounder trying to find a purpose and meaning because they've been told, I know I was, you've been told that your purpose is to serve God and to do his will, and that he gives you meaning when you do that. And life has meaning when you're fulfilling that purpose. And when that's gone, when you're just here, we live a certain number of years, then we die. What's the point? I know that I've talked to other people who have expressed that loss of purpose and meaning. Have you? I know you've talked to people like that too, Paul. I'm sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
And of course, when I was in religion, and I know when I'm talking with lots of other people, you certainly do feel that sense that there's something larger than yourself, that you are part of God's plan, and because God created the universe, therefore, his plan is some objective basis for our value versus being, some subjective value. But ultimately, really, that is a false feeling if you think about it, because even if God did create the universe, and I know you weren't specifically a theist, but I'm speaking of my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
When I had that thing, it actually wasn't objective even in that sense. It was entirely subjective to this subject of God. And now what I observe, of course, people who have found something that they consider to be bigger than themselves, they can avoid the nihilism feeling.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they have actually latched on to something that is true in the sense that it conforms to reality necessarily, because people of all faiths, and even people of certain hobbies, or people who get involved in social causes, they can all feel the same feeling of value beyond themselves, but not all of their causes can be true, right? So this tells me that what makes that feeling go away can be found almost anywhere. In terms of, but it can't be found necessarily in focusing only on ourselves. That seems to be the common thing. And if we had a longer show, I might espouse a bit on perhaps the evolutionary biological reasons why that might be the case. But I guess I might encourage you, RFB, to have you explored other things you can be involved in beyond yourself to see if you can replicate the same feeling that you had when you were involved with perhaps some of those other religions. Have you tried anything like that?
The closest thing I have done is probably to hang out with friends sometimes in either when we're having a meal or as a club activities in a uni.
And you found that satisfying?
I think
Go ahead.
I find joy in them. I actually also working on a personal project. I find fulfilling, but I think there's something that I can have some assign value to it and enjoy it. I think.
Because that nihilistic feeling, I mean, unfortunately, when we start to let our mind go crazy with the scope and the vastness of the universe and how we don't even understand deep time, we as humans, it's not something our brains can even get ourselves around, this idea of billions of years. One can say that that the universe doesn't necessarily care that we're here, and but that's not the thing to focus on. What you want to focus on is that, what do we find most valuable in this world? Well, the thing that's most valuable in this world is always the most scarce thing. So if we can get something everywhere, like some people take water for granted, right? In Canada, we have water all over the place, so we take it for granted and we don't value water the way we should. But if we were on the moon, we would value water greatly because it's scarce. The thing that's scarce for us, though, is air. Light. Yeah, air, right? But it's when something is scarce, like gold or air on the moon or whatever. As soon as something is small and finite, that's when we value it. And so the fact that we only get this one life, as far as we know, we get this only one life, then that is, it shouldn't be sad that it isn't infinite and that it isn't ubiquitous everywhere in the galaxy. We should be treasuring it precisely because it belongs only to us, and that it's the only one we get, and not worry about the fact that it isn't bigger or somehow have other qualities. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense, and I perfectly understand the sentiment that since this is the only life we know, we should make the most of it. I actually kind of have that hold that sentiment, and kind of failed myself by how do I say it, wallowing on what I have failed and feel like I have failed myself or something like that.
Yeah. That's not uncommon.
By no means.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, that's a common element of all of us. We can wallow in our failures. We can have regrets for what we did or didn't do as we get older, as we go through life. I think that's a trap. Regret is a very costly emotion, and it can really suck the life out of us if we let ourselves linger there. I think to Paul's point, the fact that life is precious and brief and chaotic and unpredictable makes it very uniquely valuable. I know when I got my diagnosis of ALS and found out I had a terminal disease and was going to die sooner than I had expected to, it made every day more important. It made everything more important. It made all my relationships more valuable. Everything kind of came into focus in a way that it didn't before. And what I've talked about a lot in my dying out loud process is that it shouldn't take something like that to make us recognize what's valuable, what's important, and how to focus on what matters and where to find the meaning and where to grab a hold of the moments in life. They can be harder to find for some of us, and at times for all of us. I mean, I had a day today where I was struggling because I got a wheelchair was delivered to me and a shower seat, and 2 weeks ago we put a stair lift in, and all these things are visual reminders of my impending demise, and they're created to help me live a better quality of life, to help me manage life better as my disease progresses. But when I see them in front of me, it brings into focus the awareness that my time is running out. And that can be a downer, but at the same time, if I look at it from the right perspective, which sometimes takes me a minute to do, because today was a rough day. I'm just being honest, because these things arrived and it was like, well, shit, this is really getting real now. And it is. And this stuff's getting harder. But if I take a minute and I pause and I look around at and get my perspective shifted a little bit, then I realize, okay, this is just to help me live better, longer. And that's a win. That's a good thing. And that it sometimes just takes some time to shift our perspective. And I think we all have to do that from time to time. And some of us have to do it more often than others. If you feel hopeless and nihilistic, if that's kind of your default position on a daily basis, then you have to do the work, if you will, to find the things in life that have meaning, find the things that light you up, find the things that get you up in the morning and that make this one life we have precious and enjoyable and meaningful.
I completely understand and value that sentiment. Actually, I'm still trying. I think I call this especially because I can talk like this to my friend or even go to a therapist even, but I think I kind of want to share this because it's kind of a part of how I feel. Religion assigns value and often treats it like an objective truth because I often see it in apologetics and counter apologetics, and I mean it even if I don't agree with what apologists and believers says, it kind of still rings some feelings in me that
that is
it isn't really
partially why they're so successful.
Something like that.
Yeah, but you understand that's partially why they're so successful, right? Because that the feeling I want you to not think that the feeling of nihilism that you're feeling is unique to you. I felt it both as a believer and a non-believer. I'm sure Dave has felt it. All of us, we weren't trying to scold you in any way for having that feeling. In fact, it is that universal feeling that we have, and it is the lack of that there is actually ultimately, in my view, there isn't that single purpose to be found. That religion can play on that because that's a common feeling we all have, and they're selling snake oil essentially. We're gonna we're going to cover over your nihilism
Exactly.
with an answer that benefits us and our pocketbooks. And that is partially why religion can be so successful.
Yeah.
It's selling false answers to a common problem. So it makes sense that it looks appealing to you because that's how they've designed it.
I mean, I'm gotta get out of it. I probably won't get into religion soon because, as you've said, it's just another answer that isn't really objective. So I was like, let's just do it our way, even if it isn't necessarily correct, but we can correct along the way. That's kind of mindset I got into.
Yeah. Well, I just, as we let you go, before we let you go, I just want to echo what Paul said, that the fact that you called in to express your feelings about this and that you are wrestling with how to deal with your nihilistic feelings is a positive thing in my view, in that you are addressing it and wanting to at least deal with it in ways that maybe you can improve on your outlook. So that's a good thing that you should take away, that you are in fact talking about it, dealing with it, and not just letting it consume you. So keep up that good work and keep trying to find ways to make meaning in life and to put the light on different places that make things make differences. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for calling in, buddy. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
It is a universal feeling, and anybody that says they haven't wrestled with nihilism and meaningless and all that is just probably not being completely honest, if we're going.
Right, I agree.
Okay, we got to get some calls. Thank you for holding, everybody. I know that some of you have been waiting a while, but we're going to try to get to everyone. Let's go to Paul, him in Texas. Hey, Paul, you're on with Dave and Paul. What's on your mind?
Hey, so glad to get through to you guys tonight. Dave, you're one of my heroes. I'm going to tell you that right now. And Paul, we share a very similar experience. I was raised very fundamentalist Christian, and coming out of that, I deconverted, and through my deconversion process, I basically tried to realize how the world really is and live in such a way that it does. And since becoming an atheist, I lost my dad back in 2017, and it hurt, but I realized, hey, he's not in pain anymore, and he lived a good, long life.
Mm-hmm.
But recently, about a month ago, my best friend died 2 days before his 32nd birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And
really
it hurts. It really, really hurts.
Yeah.
And as an atheist, I have come to the realization that he's gone, and that I can't pull out a Ouija board, and I can't just go to church and light a candle for him, and he's really gone.
Mm.
And,
was it a sudden? Was it sudden, Paul, or was it?
I think that's part of the worst part. Is we still don't know the cause of death. We know he was out with friends, and later that night, there's a 911 call, and he was unresponsive, and the medical examiner called his mom, and then they called me early in the morning on a Saturday morning to tell us, can you identify this person?
Wow.
Oh.
No, so
I think not knowing,
you didn't get time with him. You didn't get to say goodbye, is what I was asking you. If it was sudden. Yeah.
Not in any meaningful way. Although I was actually feeling down the day before, and I texted him because he was the person I could always reach out to, and he would, give me advice, and I'd give him advice, and it was just, hey, I need something, and we had actually made plans to go out the next day, the day that he died. That night, we were supposed to go out, get some drinks, and get caught up on things. And when his sister texted me and called me that afternoon to tell me he'd passed away, I was I'm still kind of in disbelief and shock. But I guess my question is, and I know Paul's here. I know Shannon lost her dad recently, and some things hurt. Some loss hurts more than others.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing a priest up there try to blow smoke up people's ass that he's right next to Jesus now, and we can all just look forward to seeing him again. Like as nice of a thought as that kind of is, even though I think that's actually not a really nice thought. I do know, he did have traumas in his life, and there was pain. He did have anxiety and depression. And part of me says, at least he's not suffering anymore. At least the pain is gone. But now the pain is on me. It's on those of us that are here, his mom and dad, his sister. So how can we? Dave, you're facing you're facing it head on, and that's why I can't not watch your show, because it's inspiring to me. And so I really do appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate, Paul, all the work that you do, especially how kind and charitable you are to people that grew up like we did. People that are honest, good, not apologists, but just honest people that believe what they were told. And so I appreciate facing the world in an honest way and coming to grips with reality. And other than I have reached out to Grief Beyond Belief, and they've got some great resources. And one thing I like that they say on there is it's grieve in your own way. Don't let anybody tell you how you're grieving is not the right way. But, I'm also conscious that, when I get really upset, I can hurt the people that are around me, and I don't want to do that. So what's a healthy way to kind of prepare for losing someone? What's something that I can do so that when I'm gone, people can be comfortable with my loss?
Paul, your thoughts first off?
Sorry, you're gonna hear my puppy a little bit.
That's okay.
So, like Dave, I think I've talked about this on Dave's other show. I had a diagnosis where I had only weeks to live. I was basically told I had only weeks to live, and that definitely shapes how you did. And I honestly believe that in those kind of circumstances, it is easier for the person who is going to pass potentially than it is for the people who are going to stay. And what I needed to do, especially since everyone I was dealing with was believers too, who honestly thought if I was going to pass that month that, I was going to have eternity in hell. You asked the question, how can you prepare people or that kind of thing? I mean, one of the things you will need to do if you have theists in your life is assure them that that you're okay, that you're okay with this decision, and that you're not afraid, and some of those kind of things. Maybe you are afraid. I guess I don't know, but where was I going with all that? It's one of those things that if it ends up happening to you, you don't necessarily know how you're going to react. I don't think I could have predicted that. My big takeaway was I'm not mowing the lawn anymore. That's just I'm not. That's my thing, 'cause I don't enjoy it. But man, it's tough when facing these things, facing the reality, and getting the hard pill to swallow versus the comforting thought that maybe we'll see everyone again is obviously the harder take. Everything just feels trite to say, but it's one of those things where, boy, you spoke of your friend so highly here. You spoke, I could tell the joy that you had in your voice every time you were saying something about that you could reach out to them, and your voice lifted. I don't know if you were conscious of that every time. And when you did that, that is the celebration of that you had the time. And it feels like the trite thing, better to not love and lost. But it is one of the things, you had this friend who was meaningful, and it sounds like you were meaningful to each other. And, would you have chosen not to have that time just because it was going to be short? Like you probably wouldn't have. You would have absolutely signed on board day one of that friendship, knowing that it was only going to be shorter than you wanted it to. So those are some randomness. I don't know if anything in there meant anything, but
No,
but
it's good.
yeah, go ahead, Dave.
No, it's good. I'd forgotten that you had that diagnosis. We talked about that a couple of years ago when you were on my show, and it changes your perspective on everything. It does. But I think your point is valid, Paul. The person who loses someone has it harder than the person who goes away. I'm aware of that in my life as I'm facing the end of days. For me, I'm aware that Bevan, my partner, and especially her, but also my kids, my son, especially who I'm close with, and then a bevy of wonderful friends that I have are going to miss me. They're going to feel the loss acutely that I'm not there anymore. And that's what you're feeling, Paul, with your friend who you lost suddenly. The sad thing to me in your situation, and I had an experience very similar in that I lost my best friend years ago, suddenly to a freak accident. He and I pastored together. I had moved, he was in Arkansas and I'd moved to Tennessee. So we didn't have the proximity, but we talked on the phone at least twice a week about everything. And then suddenly he was gone. And it was just a phone call I got from a mutual friend, and Steve's gone. And I had actually dedicated my book to him because that was the loss I felt more than any other. I've lost family members. I've lost former church members. I've lost other friends, but this was the loss that I felt the most acutely. And it's because of the close proximity that we shared, the closeness that we'd lived life with. Even though, you know, when he died, I was still a believer. And I've often wondered what those conversations would have been like with him as I deconstructed. Because I would have talked with him. I would have talked with him about it. Go ahead.
And it's so great. I value definitely both of your points of view. I actually kind of forgot about what you went through, Paul. I've seen you talk about it on your channel before. But yeah, it's those of us that are left behind that kind of deal with the pain. And sometimes I think it's okay for us just to talk to them like they are here, even though we know they're not, and just, just to talk things out. I think my therapist agrees with me on that. Sometimes it's good just to get things off your chest.
Sure.
And I guess I just do appreciate both your time today, and you both made a lot of sense, and I feel that just having your aspect of the community is valuable in a very unique way that just, I don't see anyone else that's, really facing death head on, facing loss like as somebody who knows that is convinced that when we're done, our battery's up, we're expired. There's not a heaven or a hell to go to, and we have to celebrate the time that we have now. And I feel like y'all have really helped kind of put things into a honest, just good lens, and something that really helped me today. So thank you.
Well, that's good, man. There's no easy way to get through this, Paul, and I agree. You agree with what you've been told. Grieve in whatever way you need to. Process it in however you need to. And if you talk to your friend every day, who cares? Just do what you got to do, because he was taken away from you too soon and too quickly. And it wasn't fair, but as we all know, life isn't fair. And it sucks. But Paul said it right. He said you had those times together with him, and it's reflected in the way that you sound when you talk about him. It's beautiful. And it tells us that you had a wonderful friendship, and you should cherish that and hold on to those memories. And then as you go through the rest of your life, do everything you can to replicate that, to find the people that mean something to you and make the most of those relationships, and don't let the moments pass you by. Grab the moments with the people that you love and make this life count. I guess that's the takeaway here.
Absolutely. And life as an atheist has become so much more meaningful than life as a theist ever was, because I'm not, this isn't a dress rehearsal. I'm not,
That's right.
trying to lay up treasures in heaven. I'm just trying to, live my life as good of a person as I can to those around me, and try to make a positive impact on this world. So, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. I'm got to let you go before I break into full-on tears here.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And you call back anytime and let us know how you're doing, brother. Sorry for your loss, brother.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for the call, Paul.
Thanks for calling.
So, thank you.
Ah, man, that's just fucking tough. You could hear the joy in his voice talking about his friend, but you could also hear the pain. The pain was there. It's real. Ah, damn it. Let's talk to Zach in Missouri. He, him. Hi, you're on the line with Dave and Paulogia.
Hi, man. It's pretty wild to talk to both of you, because you're both like almost superstars. I had looked up to see when Dave would be on things next, and even better, Paulogia is here too, because my question is about. I grew up like not fundamentalist, but conservative Christian, and it wasn't until a few years ago that I started like questioning and acting, basically reevaluating things, deconstructing, and now I'm at a point where I don't really believe it anymore, and there are certain things that I see the same passages in the Bible that I've known of before and never thought much of, and now I'm like, wow, that's like pretty messed up. And so I reach out to my family and friends, and I'm like, hey, like, what do you think about this? And I guess my question to you guys is, what's the best way to go about interacting with family and friends that are still Christians and asking about these troubling passages?
The opposite way I did it. So,
Okay.
You did it better than me, Paul. So why don't you?
No, I didn't. I definitely my first months and days were all mistakes. I was definitely cautionary tale too. So I guess we'll inform you. We'll give you advice out of our own failures, I guess, on this. I think part of it is depending on what your goal is, of course. Like, if is your goal to free them, to deconvert them, is your goal to maintain long-term relationships with them, and are those two tied together? Can you have long-term relationships with these people? And as possible, no one's obligated to have relationships with their family if they don't want to. Those are relationships you can let go. But for me and my family, I definitely hit them hard with all the new knowledge I had. All the new evolution stuff that I knew, and all the big problems of the Bible, like you were just saying. I wanted to give them all the bad passages, of course, just like you were saying. But it wasn't helpful because it has in psychology, I forget the exact name for it, but it has the reverse effect. What you end up doing when you attack someone's belief is you end up entrenching them more, as opposed to unsolicited information doesn't tend to change people's minds. So it needs to be solicited information. So I guess my advice would be to more ask questions than provide answers. And that probably some street epistemology would be great. If you can actually get to the core of why your friends and family believe the way they do, then you can talk about that core thing versus these side issues, right? So most people aren't well versed enough in the Bible, and their faith doesn't actually hinge on how specific passages are interpreted. So those things just cause them uncomfortable dissonance, versus what really maybe is the core of it is they were raised that way, or they had a very emotional experience. I had a very emotional experience when I was baptized that I would have told you up and down was absolutely the Holy Spirit. If you end up asking questions and explore, hey, Paul, was that experience of emotional experience you felt when all your friends and family gather around to tell you what a great choice you made? Was the fact that you felt affirmed in that, did that need a supernatural explanation? Or maybe could you explain that based on the fact that you literally just came out of refreshing water and everyone's telling you how amazing you are and you're the sole focus of the day? Sometimes it's that I would ask them questions, and I would, and maybe they will get to the point where the inerrancy of the scripture is the linchpin for them, and then you can start talking, or how moral God is, their Christian God is, and then it's worthwhile to saying, hey, what do you think about this passage where you're allowed to beat your slaves as long as they don't die, or that we want to bash Canaanite babies on the rocks, or all the various problematic things that there could be. But if that's not their linchpin, you are just going to cause strain. Yeah. So I don't know. It depends on what are your goals with these family relationships. Do you want to deconvert them, or what are you thinking?
So I would say that I definitely have a healthy relationship with my family. Like my mom and my sister. Like we even have they kind of know where I'm at right now. And, it's not like they're cutting ties or anything like that, even to the point where, my mom is like, hey, as long as we have, as long as it's open and honest discussions and it's not, rude and, badgering, she's open to me asking questions like this. So that's definitely helpful. I obviously, one of the core goals of all of this is that I would want to, not cut off family or anything like that, because it's not an unhealthy situation. So it's mainly just I don't know. I don't even think that I'm trying to deconvert them, because part of me is if this is something there are people in my family that I know, there's no way that they could ever, it's so entrenched, even if that was my goal, it's fruitless. So if it's something that gives them peace and solace and they're not hurting others by doing it, I'm not trying to convert them. Even so, definitely for my grandpa, that's the case. For my mom and my aunt, that's probably also still the case. They're gonna, for the rest of their life, this is it would be fruitless to even try to go against it. It's just making sure that their beliefs aren't harming others. So it's not a case where I'm trying to flip them, but it's definitely something that I don't know, especially since they were the ones that taught these things to me growing up. It almost feels like there's some responsibility to bear to be hey, these things that we're taught, some of the stuff's fucked up. What do you think about that? Not necessarily in the goal to be you're not going to be a Christian anymore, but hey, can you account for this? Because taking on the moniker of a Christian, you kind of have to.
That's
one of the.
I mean, it would be great if you could do that and they wouldn't get defensive. But like Paul said, that the default mode when you challenge them with certain passages is defense, because they feel like you're attacking their core beliefs, the things that are most important to them. It sounds like your goal, at least what you're experiencing so far with them, is mutual respect and getting along even though you disagree. I think that's a lofty goal. I think that's a lot of families, a lot of deconstructed atheists would be happy with that. I know I would have been. Just to have family members that just accepted my changes without losing their shit. But they didn't. They lost their shit, and they somewhat still do. And that's the question I would ask them. And I've asked, right now I have a daughter and a brother and a mom who, of all of my family members, are the most likely to say things and have said things like, we just are sad that you've left God and we want you to return to him. And what my response has been and will continue to be is, why? Why are you upset or sad or disappointed in my changes in the way that I've changed? Because I'm happy. I'm as happy as I've ever been. I feel very much at peace, even though I have a terminal disease. I'm happy. I love my life, and I'm very much at peace. Why are you not okay with that? And when you ask them that, they're forced to admit that they believe in a God who's retributive, who's vengeful, who would cast me into hell, their son, their father, their brother. They don't like to admit that because at their core, they know I'm a good person. At their core, they know I'm not hurting anyone. Even though I'm attacking their faith, they know that I'm doing it out of my own sincerely held belief, to use that term they love. And so they have a hard time admitting that their God they serve would send me to hell. And so when I ask them, why are you upset that I've deconverted? Why can't you be happy that I'm happy? I'm not attacking you personally. I'm attacking your faith, just like you would attack my atheism. They don't like to answer that question. And so they usually, what I've found is they kind of leave you alone. And they go about their business, and they don't seem to be that concerned that I'm going to hell, because if they were, they would be calling me night and day, but they're not. So we've kind of made peace. And I think if that's your goal, is to be at peace with your family and not try to deconvert them, which from my own perspective, I wouldn't try to do that. I don't think that's our job, is to go out trying to deconvert people. We want to Paul's point, answer their questions when they ask them. But I don't try to deconvert anyone. I just simply tell my story, and I answer questions as I'm asked. But if you're wanting to be at peace with them, get along, and just ask them to respect your decisions, then I think it seems like you're on that path. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I definitely know that the situation that I'm in is better than a lot, and so I'm thankful for that. In the times when we do, because my mom has been receptive to discussing these things, but specifically on like whenever I would bring passages of like the slavery stuff in Exodus 21, or the one just recently that I had heard of and went back and read, that was like children of illegitimate birth. For the next 10 generations, you won't be allowed into the assembly of the Lord. When I ask them things about that, like, hey, like, what's going on with this? It always seems to be the Christian catch-all of, oh, that's the Old Testament. That doesn't really count. And so I'm wondering, from both of your, you guys are really well-versed in the Bible. What would your guys' response be to those kind of, cop-outs?
Well, just a couple of things. So specifically to that cop-out, Jesus thought the Old Testament was super important.
Exactly.
And not a single jot or tittle will be abolished, until the earth is renewed. So I would then point just to Jesus said, "Have you not heard that it was said?" Like if you go through the whole New Testament and say how many times Jesus referred to the Old Testament, it's a lot. And so it's very and Paul, even though he was the apostle to the Gentiles, very much, was that Christianity was built upon Judaism. So that cop out isn't that they would have a hard time answering that. I think if you wanted to go there, and I get you can say Old Covenant, New Covenant, and that is probably fair. Like Jesus did come to reframe, if you want to accept the Bible as written. He definitely reframed a lot of that stuff, but he didn't throw any of it out. He specifically said none of this gets thrown out. But I guess I'm wondering, you said something that I kind of keyed in on, and that is you just want to make sure that they're not doing harm. And I think that is a laudable goal. I think if your family is doing harm, you definitely want to do what you can to alleviate that. There's two ways to do harm. One is directly, either through supporting harm through laws or whatever, but also then sometimes you can also just, if you have bad epistemology, sometimes that bleeds. So there's ways, that's an indirect harm that you can do. So I would encourage you, maybe don't bring up the Bible verses stuff, because that's not necessarily where they're doing harm. Sorry about the puppy.
It's okay.
But
we love the dog.
Where was it? Maybe concentrate again if you see them, either through bad thinking that there's ways to correct, or if they're actively out, like it doesn't sound like they necessarily are, but if they're actively out trying to stop LGBTQ rights or something, or something along those lines, you can get involved there. Otherwise, maybe don't bring it up. But on the epistemology side, you can actually take it outside the realm altogether, and you can talk about, hey, the Ancient Aliens show on TV, and it's like, hey, they made this really outlandish claim. Mom and Dad, how do you think that, or brothers and sisters, whoever it is, how do you think that you would go about determining whether that is a true claim or a false claim? That's if you can take it outside of their deeply held belief and talk more about how you decide what's true and what's not, I think you can make more headway than pointing out bad verses. That's just your mileage may vary, but that's been my experience.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, that's good advice on when they throw the Old Testament at you, is that's just the Old Testament. Jesus had a lot of opportunities to correct the bad behavior of Yahweh in the Old Testament in regard to genocide and slavery and misogyny and all the things that the Old Testament's full of, and yet he didn't take advantage of that. So he was very complicit in his endorsement of Old Testament ideology. So whenever people use that excuse, that's just the Old Testament, Jesus came to bring a better way. But did he? No, he really didn't, because he didn't fix any of the stuff that was wrong. But
yeah.
Well, good luck to you, Zach. It sounds like you're doing okay navigating difficult family things. Just be patient. Remember that when we deconvert, the people that knew us the best are the ones who are most threatened by it. And they get defensive because it feels like we're attacking them. And they're also afraid because they feel like if it can happen to Dave, who very much believed it, it could happen to me. And so they have to double down and shore up their defenses. So just be patient and understanding and recognize what's going on. It's not about them attacking you personally. It's just their default mechanisms.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you guys so much. You're both great in your own right. I've watched both of you, so I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys.
You bet,
Thanks,
man.
Zach.
I appreciate your call. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
It's tough. We both know that.
It is. Yeah. Yep.
Let's talk to Lucy. You've been holding a long time. Lucy, she, her, and Virginia. You're on with Dave and Paulogia on the line. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing well.
Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I enjoy listening to shows like this and all. My situation's about reconnecting with my religious side of the family. My paternal side's like very devout Christian and all. And I've lost contact with them for a while. When we lost contact, I was still so young that I didn't really understand what religion was. Church to me was just the boring place my dad took me to. And I just had to sit around for a few hours. But I've started to reach out and get back in contact with them, and given their religious connection, I know at some point they're going to broach the topic, and I don't know how I should, respond or explain to them that I'm atheist, this is what I believe, whilst also not pushing them away from, connecting with me, because they're still kind of important to me personally.
Let me ask you, did they know you as a Christian? I mean, is that their opinion of you?
I was still very young, so at that age I still went to church and all that, but I wasn't like very outspoken about religion. I hadn't come to an opinion, so so they probably would still have known me
Mhm.
as a Christian, because, yeah, I'm not, honestly,
And
I'm not
you're
so long
feeling
ago.
like probably it's just you're assuming it's going to come up because you know them as religious people, so you're kind of
I know them
bracing
as
for
religious people. I
yeah.
am fully aware of, yeah, like, my dad took me to church every Sunday, and
Mhm.
I know, like, my uncle, I'm pretty sure, is like a pastor and all, so it's like that's gonna come up at some point. I
Yeah.
already know, so it's like, how would I handle it? Should I stop the conversation myself? What should I end up doing?
Mm. Yeah, preemptively, how do you handle that, Paul?
Well, what is your, when you imagine this, because it sounds like perhaps you've done what I and lots of us do, is we catastrophize and we extrapolate in our head all the worst ways it can go.
Absolutely. Those
What I forget
conversations
to
in
do
our head.
exactly, and what I forget to do myself, and Shannon sometimes reminds me of, like, think of the opposite. What's the best possible outcome you can imagine, and how can you possibly steer it that way? How would you, like, maybe we don't know you, Lucy, so maybe you're the kind of person that would love to have that kind of conversation, or is it
Mhm.
something that you would prefer to avoid? What's your best case scenario if you could plan and achieve
Generally,
go ahead.
Personally, I don't have a preference. I don't have a preference for a lot of things. I'm open to starting or having that conversation. It's just the more fear of it going extremely badly. Having an open conversation is something I'm very much for, but I don't like, I don't want it to devolve into a full-on, like, argument debate thing, because not something I enjoy doing with those close to me.
Right.
Well, one way to possibly preempt it, then, one strategy you can take is to say, hey, you guys, I know you guys are very religious, and I'm saying you guys in the most generic sense. I'm not, yeah, anyway, you get it. Family,
Yes.
family, I know you're very religious, and I'm not. I'm an atheist. I have explored these things myself. So during our family time, what I want to do is reconnect with you and get to know you as people. But if you have questions of me, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. But you can sort of lay some ground rules that, you know what, I don't want to spend our time here being preached to and that kind of thing. But I'm open to answer any questions you have, so that it's kind of fair in that way. That is one way you can. That is one tack. That's one tack you can take, so that you're not feeling like you're cutting it off, or that we'll never talk about religion. But it's a way to keep your time sticking to the valuable things. Does that seem like a possible path for you?
Yeah, I think that might be doable. Yep. Haven't actually managed to meet any of them in person, but yeah, I feel like I could probably do that when I, like, actually get to talk to them and all.
Right. And if they start preaching at you and start throwing verses at you, it's like, oh, I love those, are great. Maybe put those in an email if you really think that I need to see them. But while we had this very rare time together, let's focus on other stuff.
Are you anticipating? I mean, are these people you're going to be living with, or just sharing meals occasionally with, or what's the time frame here?
I don't live with that. Yeah, I'm probably not going to end up living with them, just due to, my non-religious / not so, like, devout Christian side. It is generally in a better position to support me anyway, so
Right.
probably not going to live with them, but I still want a good relationship.
Yeah. Well, I think if you've got just interspersed occasions where you're with them at meals or whatever, then those are a lot easier to get through than if somebody you're living with and seeing them morning and evening and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can probably navigate that a little more easily than if it was cohabitation. I know that I recently had to go to a family gathering for my mom's birthday, and I was going into a scenario where I was going to be pretty much the only atheist in the room, full of very religious, conservative Christian people. I knew a few people there shared my worldview, but not very many. And I felt I did this thing that Paul was talking. I rehearsed all these conversations in my head that I was anticipating that none of them happened. And so the anticipation was worse than the reality. And hopefully that'll be the case here with you. And if not, then, to Paul's point, try to just deflect those conversations as much as possible and just tell them politely, this is really not something that I'm comfortable talking about, and leave it at that kind of thing.
Yeah. All right.
And if you're
Thanks
comfortable
for your
with
advice.
it, if you're comfortable with it, you can also offer to, we don't need to have this, but invite them to pray for you if you're comfortable with that. That's something I always do. It's like, you know what? I don't necessarily want to, but feel free to, if you want to include me in your prayers so that God will reveal himself if he's real, have at it, kind of a thing, because that does give them a course of action that they can take towards you. And it's probably harmless as far as you're concerned. So
unless they want to lay hands on you right there and pray for you.
No, not that. But if you really are having a hard time deflecting the preaching, you can at least point them to another action to assuage their own consciences, I guess, as it were. But your mileage may vary, and you can pick and choose.
Yeah. Thanks again.
No trouble.
Well,
thank you for calling.
It's been something.
Call back in anytime. Call back in and let us know how it's going when you start experiencing that. We'd love to hear back from you.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay,
Lucy.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
It's a common theme on the show tonight, is dealing with religious family. That's
it's almost like it's a trope or something.
It's kind of like a thing. Yeah. It's a very, my God, it's one of the things that we hear about the most. It's one of the most troubling aspects of my deconversion was dealing with family and friends.
Absolutely.
And I still do. It's still a thing going on now. They just cannot let it go. And it's, it is what it is. Do the best we can. Let's get to some super chats. You go first, Paul.
All right. We have $5 from Robin Webster. Pardon me. Loved your family picks, Dave. You were my choice of favorite show because I think this show gives us atheists more value for our own lives. So I got to agree. Hi, Paul. Thank you so much, Robin. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Robin. I appreciate your support. Thank you, Robin. And I if you're watching, I know I got that email from you about volunteering for our nonprofit, I'mDyingOutLoud.org, and I think I responded, but shoot me another one if I didn't, and I'll check that again. Now that just seeing you here reminded me that I pretty sure I responded to that, but I'm trying to be better at making sure I get back to everyone. But thank you for your support. And that family pic she's referring to is the group photo we took at that birthday thing with my mom. I was able to see for the first time in 6 years, all 3 of my kids together and all 7 of my grandkids. Yeah, it was great. It was pretty great.
There's something about that under the same roof. It's not quite the same. Yeah, there's just something about that.
Yeah, it was a moment. It's not like one of the relationships with one of my daughters is still broken, and it's not like that fixed it or anything, but at least we had that, and it was beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Robin. Awesome. 1999 from our Greg Markowski. Thank you, brother. Canada is so beautiful, and I love the people. Paul and Shannon are so lucky to live there. Well, at least we have Dave. That's a big plus for the USA. I don't know how much longer I can stay in this country, though, Greg.
But you are a credit to it nonetheless.
You guys stop. Thank you, Greg, for your support.
$5 from RPG Dunks. I have no idea who this Paulogia is. Yes, that's the right answer. But if he hangs out with Dave, he'll make it big one day. Just ask Jimmy. Oh, and gets a coffee table. Yeah, TCT, hashtag TCT, which I don't actually know what that stands for, but because I'm, whatever. But I appreciate all the sentiments and I'm assuming the joke, but maybe if not, I'm glad you're just as well off.
It's a joke because he knows about the coffee table. So
he knows about the coffee table, so yeah, he's got to know who it is.
He's probably here because he loves you. He doesn't know who I am. Is probably the truth.
Anyone who hangs out with Dave is already made it big. That's how that goes.
$9.99 from John Doan. Lots of love for the line team. AP 666. Yes, shout out to the line team. And it is a team. We've got Morgan doing the call screening today. We've got Arden producing. Thank you for the mods in the chat. There's just so many people behind the scenes every time we do a show.
You guys have no idea how much better it is when Arden is producing than when Jimmy's producing.
I know, right?
This is true. And that was the last one.
Oh my!
All right.
Okay, that was quick. Well, I told Arden before the show I can't do the longer shows because I just get too tired. But Paulogia, man, it's just always so you just are so insightful, and you have such a way of cutting to the core of the argument, cutting to the core of whatever it is the subject is, the caller. I mean, you just really are good at this. So thank you for being a part of our show.
I will hang with you anytime I get the chance, Dave.
And what do you have coming up, brother?
Coming up soon. So on my channel, so I think the things I mentioned earlier that I recorded today. So this week I'll be having Bart Ehrman on my channel, Dr. Bart Ehrman, and next week I will be on Trent Horn's channel debating Martyrdom of the Apostles. So you can check out that debate next week.
Awesome, man. You're busy. Keep up the good work, brother.
It's a living.
It's a living.
Yep.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight, and thank you for our callers. We enjoy talking with every one of you. Thank you for the people in the chat and the super chat donations, the Patreon support, and as always, as we sign out, we scroll up our patrons, the list of our patrons. So thank you again for that support. Thanks, Arden, Morgan, everybody behind the scenes. There we go. Patron producers.